It began in the dead of night, above the blackened skies of Europe, as bombs rained down on cities already turned to ash. Strange lights danced among the clouds. They weren't enemy planes. They weren't flares. They didn't belong to any known army. And yet, hundreds of pilots on both sides of the war swore they saw them. Small, glowing. Orbs, silent, fast, and intelligent. Trailing warplanes like curious ghosts. Some shimmered like molten silver. Others pulsed red, orange, or deep violet. Sometimes they hovered. Sometimes they shot away faster than any fighter jet could follow. And sometimes they simply vanished, as if swallowed by the night itself. The men who flew those missions were hardened by war, trained to recognize every known craft. But these, whatever they were, didn't make sense. They called them Foo Fighters. The name came from an old comic strip, a nonsense phrase that stuck when nothing else could explain them. And maybe that's what they were, nonsense, hallucinations born of stress and altitude. That's what the officials said, at least. Swamp gas, weather balloons, reflections, ball lightning. But how many times can the same impossible thing be explained away? And why did the sightings stop just as suddenly as they began right after the war? Or did they? In 1944, a squadron of American B-29 bombers flying over the Rhine reported being surrounded by bright, fast-moving lights objects that defied every known law of aerodynamics. No heat signatures, no sound. One pilot described it like being followed by stars that had come alive. British Royal Air Force pilots filed similar reports, spheres of light that mimicked their movements, dancing just out of reach. When fired upon, the orbs showed no damage, no fear, no change. They weren't attacking, they were observing, studying, and that may be the most disturbing part of all. Because across the front lines, German pilots were seeing them too. One Luftwaffe officer wrote in his journal, "They are not ours, they are not theirs, they are something else entirely." So who or what was flying alongside the machines of war, untouched by bullets, immune to gravity, watching the bloodshed unfold from above? Was it a new kind of secret technology, one so advanced that even its own pilots didn't understand it fully? Or something older? Not of this earth? In one encounter over the South Pacific, US Navy pilots witnessed a glowing disk that dove into the ocean without a splash. Moments later, it emerged hundreds of meters away, bone dry, and shot into the clouds. No human craft then or now could replicate that maneuver. Not in 1945, not in 2025, and still the reports were buried. Official records were stamped classified and vanished into silence. Pilots who spoke too loudly were reassigned or discredited. It's easy to dismiss a single story, a trick of the eye, a moment of confusion in the fog of war. But these weren't isolated. They came from seasoned airmen from both Allied and Axis forces across every front of the war. In 1942, during the infamous Battle of Los Angeles, the US military fired over 1,400 anti-aircraft shells into the night sky at a mysterious object hovering above the city. The target was never hit. No aircraft were recovered. The object moved with unnatural stillness, then simply disappeared. Newspapers ran the story. Civilians saw it too. And yet, official accounts blamed war nerves. A weather balloon, perhaps. The evidence was shelved, the photographs ignored, but the pictures still exist. You can see them, grainy black and white images showing beams of light converging on a strange shape above the city. It doesn't look like a balloon, it looks like something else. Somewhere between truth and legend, the Foo Fighters faded into silence. The war ended, the skies fell quiet, and just like that, they were gone. But were they ever really here? Or were they always watching, just hidden behind the veil of human perception? One veteran, interviewed decades later, recalled a haunting feeling he couldn't shake. They weren't with us. They weren't against us. They were above it all, like witnesses to something ancient playing out again. Like it had before. What was he trying to say? That war itself was a ritual? That something someone was always watching? And if so, why? Perhaps the better question is this: why did they appear during humanity's most destructive moment, and then vanish when peace returned? Or is that only what we were told? Because in the deepest corners of military archives, there are whispers of sightings that continued, of objects recovered, of knowledge hidden away. This is just the first ripple in a story that stretches across decades, maybe centuries. A mystery tangled in the fog of war, but untouched by it, and the deeper we go, the stranger it becomes. Because the Foo Fighters weren't the first unexplained visitors in our skies, and they may not have been the last. There's a strange silence that comes after war. Not peace, but something heavier, like the earth itself is holding its breath, as though some things are better left forgotten or buried. But the skies never forget. Just months after the last gunshots echoed across Europe, strange lights returned, only now they weren't confined to war zones. They appeared over deserts, oceans, mountaintops, places far from the eyes of soldiers, but not from the eyes of others. In 1946, across Scandinavia, dozens of reports emerged of what the press began calling ghost rockets. Long, metallic objects with no wings, no engines, and no explanation streaking across the sky, silent as thought, vanishing into lakes without a trace. Sweden alone documented over 2,000 sightings. Military investigations were launched. Nothing was recovered. No fragments, no impact craters, just the still surface of the water. And the questions left behind: some theorized Soviet missiles, others blamed meteors. But meteors don't change direction mid-flight, and they don't hover. Once again, the official answer came stamped with finality. We don't know what they were, but they were not hostile. And yet, every witness felt the same unease, not fear, but the sense of being observed, like a mirror had been turned on us from above. What if these sightings weren't isolated events, but part of a larger pattern? A long shadow cast over human history, whispered in ancient scrolls, etched into temple walls, preserved in myth long before radar, before jet engines, before even the wheel. People spoke of beings from the sky, not gods, not angels, but watchers. The Sumerians called them Anunna. The Dogon tribe of Mali described amphibious visitors from a star system unseen by Western science until centuries later. The Vedas of India speak of Vimanas, flying chariots powered by Mercury, capable of great destruction and impossible speed. And then there's this. In 1561, the skies over Nuremberg exploded into chaos. Witnesses described a battle in the air spheres, cylinders, and crosses engaging in what appeared to be a war among the stars. The entire city watched as objects crashed to the earth, then vanished. A woodcut from the time still exists, carved with eerie precision. It shows what looks suspiciously like modern interpretations of aerial craft. It's tempting to laugh it off as superstition, but why does it look so familiar? Why do these patterns repeat across cultures, across centuries, across continents? And why did they seem to culminate in the fires of World War II? There's something else, something the official records don't say. A few months before the Allied invasion of Normandy, intelligence agencies began intercepting strange communications from inside Nazi Germany, messages not encoded in any known cipher, discussing disks, engines of light, and beings not of this world. Some believe the Nazis weren't just pursuing human technology, they were reaching beyond. Desperate for any edge, they scoured ancient texts, raided Tibetan monasteries, and conducted bizarre experiments in secret bunkers lost to time. They called one of their projects Die Glock, the Bell, a device shaped like a bell, said to be capable of warping time and gravity. Witnesses described a shimmering, humming object, surrounded by a violet glow. Most who worked on it died. The rest vanished after the war. No photos, no blueprints, only whispered testimony. and radiation scars that linger still in the forest where it stood. What was the bell? An experiment in propulsion, or something stranger? And was it of human design? Here's a haunting possibility. What if the Foo Fighters weren't observing the war out of curiosity, but out of concern? Or worse, what if they were watching their own technology being used by us? As the Allies closed in on Germany, several Nazi scientists disappeared, spirited away through Operation Paperclip. They would later help build NASA. Others vanished to South America. Some were never found at all. And then, in 1947, the world changed again. A saucer crashed in the desert near Roswell. The military quickly closed off the area, collected debris, and released a now infamous statement: "We have recovered a flying disc." The next day, that story was retracted. Weather balloon, they said. But among the recovered fragments, some described materials that couldn't be cut, burned, or broken. Others spoke of mocking symbols, not of this earth, and still others claimed there were bodies. Roswell was not a war zone. It was peacetime. So why did the phenomenon re-emerge? Why did it follow the knowledge, not the battlefield? The Foo Fighters may have vanished from combat, but they didn't disappear. They simply changed names, became UFOs, became unexplained aerial phenomena, became taboo. But look closely, the shapes are the same. The silence, the speed, the intelligence, they haven't changed. It's only our language that has, and somewhere between the trenches of Normandy and the deserts of Roswell, a thread connects them all. Perhaps we've been weaving it without realizing. Perhaps the story of humanity is not one of isolated events, but of a long, quiet contact, one that flickers in and out of history. Like a light seen through storm clouds, brief, brilliant, and gone too fast to understand. And yet always returning, always watching. There is a point where coincidence bends, where patterns emerge so often, so precisely, that they begin to resemble intent. That point, perhaps, lies not in the skies above us, but in what we've chosen to forget. As the 1950s unfolded, the world stood on the brink once more, not with tanks or trenches, but with atoms and ideology, and still. The lights returned. During nuclear tests in the Nevada desert, unidentified objects were routinely seen hovering near detonation sites. Silent watchers, present in the moments when mankind touched the edge of annihilation. Radar technicians tracked them. Pilots scrambled to intercept. Missiles locked on, and then the targets vanished, or worse, interfered with the very systems meant to destroy them. Declassified documents from Project Blue Book, the US government's official UFO investigation from 1952 to 1969, describe these encounters not as imagination or delusion, but as credible and unresolved. Some files remain redacted. Others quietly vanished. But in the margins, notes remain. References to objects accelerating faster than any jet, making right-angle turns at Mach 3, stopping mid-air with no propulsion system at all. One air traffic controller wrote, "It's as if physics breaks when they show up." Perhaps that's the real reason we've never been told. Not that we're not ready, but that we wouldn't know what we're looking at, because these aren't simply machines, they behave. More like thought than metal. They respond before we act. They shimmer, as though phasing between this world and another. They don't fly, they appear, and that begs the question: are they here? Or are they always here, just unseen? Let's return to a moment from earlier. The Battle of Los Angeles, 1942. Air raid sirens scream across the city. A glowing object hovers motionless above. Searchlights lock onto it. 1,400 rounds of artillery are fired. Not a scratch, it disappears. Now fast forward decades later, in 2004, off the coast of California, the USS Nimitz encounters a tic-tac-shaped object. White, seamless, featureless. It drops from 80,000 feet to sea level in under a second. No sonic boom, no damage to the water, It simply is. The Navy captures video. It leaks, and in 2020, the Pentagon confirms it's real. Not a weather balloon, not a flare, not Venus. They do not know what it is, but they admit it is not ours. And here's what chills the air. It behaves exactly like the Foo Fighters of World War II. A full circle, a mirror. What if this phenomenon is not new, but eternal? What if the beings behind these craft, if beings they even are, aren't visiting from elsewhere, but from elsewhere? Ancient Vedic texts describe Vimanas capable of disappearing in one place and appearing in another, timeless, borderless. Tibetan legends speak of aerial cities, floating worlds, only visible when the mind is still. The Navajo tell of sky people, beings of smoke and fire who guided, then disappeared. And in the Bible itself, Ezekiel sees a flying wheel, burning with eyes, filled with the spirit of something beyond comprehension. Could it be that these stories, separated by oceans and eras, are all watching the same truth from different angles? A technology, no. A presence, maybe. A witness, certainly. Because every time humanity flirts with oblivion, they return to watch, to warn, to remind us that we are not alone, and maybe never were. Perhaps that's the secret buried under layers of denial and dismissal, that we are the young species in the room. The ones who think we're advanced because we split the atom when we still cannot understand a crop circle or move a stone as our ancestors once did. What if the Foo Fighters didn't come to fight, but to mourn? What if they hovered not in fascination, but in sorrow? And what if, when the last light of our cities flickers, when the last warhead is primed, they'll return one final time, not as visitors, but as judges, or saviors, or something else entirely? We do not know, but we feel it. The unease when staring at the stars, the stories shared in whispers, the sense that history is not what it seems. That something has been with us all along. A pilot from the Pacific Theater once said, "They followed us like shadows, too perfect, too precise, too silent. They weren't from here, but they weren't strangers either. They were old, old." That word echoes older than the war, older than the planes, older than even the stories we tell to make sense of the night. Foo Fighters, not a name, a placeholder for something we still don't understand, and maybe never will. But maybe we're not meant to. Maybe it's enough to ask, to wonder, to look up into the void of sky and whisper not, "What are they?" but what else is waiting to be remembered? Somewhere in the ruins of a forgotten airstrip, half swallowed by moss and time, there is a control tower with no voice, a place where radios once crackled with urgency, and where, on more than one night, a pilot reported lights moving too fast. Not one of ours. The reports are archived now, dust-covered, yellowed by years, buried under labels like unexplained or misidentified aerial phenomenon, filed away beside stories we didn't want to believe, or couldn't. But history does not care what we believe. It simply waits, and so do the watchers. We speak of sightings as if they are rare, when in truth they never stopped, they only changed shape. The Foo Fighters became flying saucers, then UFOs, then UAPs, but a name is just a veil, and behind it the same eyes still peer through. Have you noticed? The more advanced we become, the less certain we are. We launch satellites into the void, but we still don't know what's in the deepest part of our oceans. We split atoms, bend space with mathematics, but can't explain a light that follows a bomber, or a craft that turns at impossible angles with no wings, no fuel, no flame. Perhaps the answer was never technological. Perhaps it was consciousness all along. Some physicists now suggest that reality is not built from matter, but from information, from observation itself, from attention, from intention. And if that is true, if thought itself shapes the world, then what are these watchers but echoes of a consciousness older than ours? What if the lights in the sky are mirrors? reflections of something we once were, or might yet become. Maybe that's why they appear during war. Not because they are drawn to violence, but because moments of great rupture tear open the veil, allowing things through, things not of this time, not of this form. There are reports quiet, unverified, of craft recovered, of reverse engineering programs, of materials that don't burn, bend, or break, of energy systems that defy entropy. And yet, what have we done with them? Built weapons, told lies, filed secrets in dark rooms beneath the earth. Perhaps that is why they remain silent, why they do not speak, because the child still plays with fire and does not yet know how to build light. You see, this was never just a question about UFOs, never just what fell eyes, or what fell. The real question is, why do we forget? Why are these stories passed down as myth? Why do we dismiss the eyewitness, the photograph, the truth that does not fit our neat categories? It's not the phenomena we fear, it's the implications. That we are not the peak of intelligence, that we are not the owners of Earth, that something has been here long before us, and may still be here long after. In the Hindu cycle of time, there are yugas, ages that rise and fall. Each age forgets the knowledge of the last, each civilization thinks itself the first, and each eventually returns to dust, except the watchers. They remain silent, patient, as if waiting for the right question to be asked. Not what are you, but what are we? We are the ones who see the light and deny it, who build bombs instead of bridges, who bury mysteries beneath convenience. But maybe, just maybe, we are beginning to remember, because the lights are returning, the disclosures are happening. Governments, once silent, are now admitting, we don't know. And that, perhaps, is the most honest thing they've ever said. So tonight, if you find yourself beneath a clear sky, look up, not with fear, not with expectation, but with wonder. Let your eyes soften, let your breath slow, and ask not aloud, but inwardly, are you still there? Maybe nothing will happen, maybe a shooting star will pass, or maybe a single point of light will pause just for a moment. Long enough to be seen, long enough to be remembered, and in that pause, that breath between the stars, a knowing will rise, ancient and gentle. You were never alone, not then, not now, they were there. In the smoke of war, in the silence after, in the spaces between thought and sky, and they are still watching, not because we are ready, but because they are waiting for us to become so. If uncovering the hidden truths of history stirs something in you, the questions, the mysteries, the untold stories, consider liking, subscribing, and continuing the search with Thronewake.